everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar. I'm your host, as always, and I'm joined this week by two stalwart hands on the Heart and Hand ship. First of all, Linwood Rose himself, the pride of Renfrewshire. It's David Marshall.
How you doing, mate?
I'm all right. That's quite a big build-up I gave you, and you gave me 3 words back.
You put me in the spot now. Christmas in that.
Yeah, Christmas in that.
Yeah.
And
some weather we're having.
Yeah, and on a Christmas episode, then it's quite, I think, appropriate to bring on somebody who doesn't even celebrate it. It's Andy Barnett, all the way from Tel Aviv. Hello, Andy.
Yeah, how you doing, mate? Yeah, we celebrate it. Well, I did when I lived in Scotland, but because everybody was off and it was always nice. But yeah, no Christmas really here.
No, but you get isn't Hanukkah like 12 days? And loads of
8 days, yeah, but it was early this year. Yeah. When it fall at the same time as Christmas, it was always in Glasgow because it would just be 8 days of alcohol and presents. But yeah,
I could be brought. Scottish people could be brought round to that. I
think so.
Yeah, I do. 8 days of alcohol and presents. Yes, I do.
Trados look fun too, I'm in.
Yeah, I think it can all be very, very easily imported to this country. But all joking aside, gentlemen, we're here to talk about the Rangers. And this week we made it 6 out of 6 league wins under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst when we beat a rather spirited Dundee United side at Ibrox. And an interesting thing, going into the game, Dundee United had COVID issues. When we saw the team sheet, they had 4 youngsters in the team, including a 16-year-old. I think the immediate thought is, well, we're going to batter them. But funnily enough, we'd watched the Chelsea-Everton game on the Thursday, and Everton are absolutely hopeless, and they were decimated by... Sometimes it can spark this defensive mentality. And it also removes a bit of pressure in that nobody's expecting you to do anything, and you don't really need to worry too much about attacking. You just go out there and sit in 10 men behind the ball. So I was saying before the game, I predicted 2-0. I thought it might be a kind of a bit of a kind of stuffy, tough game for us to break through, and it very much turned out to be that.
Yeah, it was hard, very arduous at times. I think as well, when the other team is decimated by injuries and COVID in this case, there's added pressure on us, on the other team as well. So whilst they were under less pressure, there was more on us to try and rack up ridiculous amount of goals, and that was just never going to happen. Even on they're the only team that's beaten us in the league this year, so I doubt anybody at Rangers.
The only team that's beaten us in the league in 2 years.
Exactly. So I doubt anybody would have taken the game lightly, regardless of who was playing for Dundee United. And yeah, listen, as much as I don't really like them very much, I have to respect the way that they went about their business. They made it very difficult for us. The conditions did not look great on the TV. I have no idea what it was like being at the ground, but the fog looked very challenging as well. And the Rangers didn't quite get into any rhythm at all. And I think you have to give credit to the opposition for that. But yeah, I think in this very congested fixture sort of time, if you like, the list of fixtures we have, a win's a win. You take a win. It's not going to be 4-0 every game. And sometimes you just have to take a 1-0 hard-fought victory. And that's exactly what Saturday was.
To your point, Andy, the weather was a strange day. Ibrox, it was dark very early. Happens this time of year, of course, but even so, the very, very foggy and cold, slightly eerie around about Glasgow. And then Rangers took to the field. Dundee United in their change kit, they won the toss and made a shoot to the wrong end in the first half, and there was just a slightly surreal feeling to the game, a slightly otherworldly quality, I think, which just added into it. And then Rangers did not start very well. Now, Dave, the manager rested Joe Aribo clearly with an eye on the Old Firm match, and a gamble like that, if you win it, it worked, and he doesn't get booked, obviously. And if you don't win, he doesn't. It's a bad decision because clearly, you needed the points. So it's one of those ones that it's Schrodinger's decision. It can go very well or it can go very badly. For the manager, it worked out because we got the 3 points. Joe did not pick up a yellow card in his substitute appearance, and he will be available for that trip to Parkhead. Mm-hmm. it was just one of those awkward situations that had to be negotiated, and I'm pretty glad we negotiated it.
I think it was the right decision not to start Aribo. This should have been a game that we could have taken care of comfortably without Joe being in the team. I was quite furious, to be honest, when we actually did have to bring him on. I said at the time on Twitter it was a failure of every other player in that park on Saturday that we had to bring Joe Aribo on to get the win. I think there might be some other areas of the selection from the manager that I didn't quite agree with, but the team that we put out there to start on Saturday should have been more than enough to put away any Dundee United team, never mind one that was decimated. I can understand, the thinking of, well, sometimes these games aren't as simple as you look on paper, and you can't win every game 4 or 5-0. That's true, but if there was ever a game where we should have been winning 4 or 5-0, it was probably that one. I think we were very much dragged down by Dundee United, and even ignoring that, we weren't doing the simple things. Our passing throughout the majority of the game was rotten, and that's nothing to do with Dundee United. That was ourselves. We had too many empty jerseys for large portions of the match on Saturday, and that was on the 11 players who started that game for me.
Yeah, it was an interesting selection. Then came John Lundstrom for him, which kind of looked like a defensive change to me, surprisingly, given that the manager has not really hasn't gone really with two holders in most of the league matches. And Hadji on the right. Hadji had an absolute nightmare. Probably the the sponsors get to pick a man of the match at Ibrox, and he was announced as the man of the match, and I couldn't quite believe it. But Rangers were slow, a little bit lethargic, didn't quite manage to get anything going in the first half. I thought really they were just being well fought off by Dundee United, who had organised into the very defensive formation, but were also the front two were stopping the ball coming out of Rangers defence into midfield, and that caused Rangers a few problems. Interestingly, at the very start, Andy, Rangers lined up with Nathan Patterson at right back, James Tavernier and Connor Goldson at centre back, and Calvin Bassey at left back. That changed after 3 minutes when Rangers reverted to what I think we would have considered would be the first choice back four, which was, of course, James Tavernier at right back, Calvin Bassey and Connor Goldson at centre back, and Nathan Patterson playing, albeit on the wrong foot, but playing at left back. Now, the explanation for that from the manager was Dundee United normally play with one up, and they thought they were going to play with one up. Then they saw they were playing with two, so they adapted very quickly. It's an interesting thing, and it's something I think we might see in the future. James Tavernier or someone like him going in, someone not a centre back basically, but very good on the ball, because I think the suspicion is if a team plays one up against you, your centre back should be able to cope with that, and the other player can act almost as a very deep lying playmaker. It's a very Dutch idea, but I think that's an experiment that we probably haven't seen the last of.
No, I think it's positive that the manager is able to make changes before the game, of course, to the starting lineup and the formation, and change it as soon as he sees something. Because one of the complaints we made about the previous management was that it takes so long sometimes inside games to make changes. And I think Steven Gerrard said himself that sometimes he relied on his players to fix it themselves and figure it out. I think it's good that the manager steps in after a matter of minutes and changes it once he's identified what's happening. The other thing I would say as well is that it doesn't indicate very well for Jack Simpson because you could have started with Bassey on the left and Simpson in the middle, but instead he went with a sort of natural right back. Yeah, as a natural right back to play left back. I mean, Bassey's, we would all probably agree that whilst he's been absolutely a revelation at centre back, a couple of wee mistakes here and there, but he's adapted tremendously there. And it's been very stable for the last few weeks that he is a better left back. And when Barisic isn't fit, he's the next player who you would play there, with all respect to Patterson. So I think that's also another suggestion of just how far down the pecking order Simpson is, and why maybe going in for a centre back or certainly getting one back from injury as soon as possible is so imperative to moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Simpson was to certainly be if there is the reported interest in him, it certainly wouldn't surprise me if he was heading out of Ibrox in January, because, as you say, he's very, very far from the first team picture. But didn't create all that much, Dave, in the first half. A header from a set piece for Connor Goldson, and then a good chance from Alfie when he forced a good save from Trevor Carson in the Dundee United goal. And that was pretty much all we had to show for 45 minutes effort.
It was really poor. I mean, I don't really think you can describe it as any other way. It was so slow, not what we were expecting at all. I mean, as we mentioned, Dundee United did sit in, but again, we got dragged down to that level. We weren't moving with the same tempo that we've came to expect under Gio. We made it really easy for them. I think we had problems on both sides of the attack. I think Yanis Hadji, as poor as a game as he has, I'm not even taking that in isolation. I just don't think, if we're going to play Hadji, I think he has to be in a central number 10 role, and right now he's not going to get the start there because, rightly, Joe Aribo, that's his jersey to lose at this point, and rightly so. He's been probably our best player this year, and then Scott Wright as well. I think we've seen all the flaws in his game when he came on. It's just he can run in a straight line really, really well, but thereafter it's what can you do? He just seems to run that corridor, and his decision making just isn't there. His delivery just isn't there. We were getting nothing from those areas in the park, and everything was just being stagnated into that middle, and we just weren't creating anything for the most part.
I think there's an interesting discussion to be had about Hadji and Scott Wright. And incidentally, I agree with you about Hadji. I don't think he enjoys being wide right. I don't think it suits him at all. No. But even so, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered where he was playing on Saturday because his touch was off. It was just one of those days. Nothing went right for him. But it's interesting because people will say, I don't know what Scott Wright has to do to get more starts. And it's all he has to create things. Yeah, there has to be end product to it because he's got terrific mobility. He'll stretch defences, and he did that on Saturday, I thought, and he did offer us a little bit more. But then he doesn't score enough goals, and he doesn't create enough goals, and that's the issue. Mm-hmm. Hadji, on the other hand, is the opposite. He creates and is involved in loads of stuff, but then at other times falls on his backside and looks as though he's just met with the football. And it's quite a puzzle because you've got one who looks all, and I suppose it's the type of player that you like. Daniel Candeias was a great example of this, where people who loved Daniel Candeias because he was all action, never stopped. And then I was more in the camp of, yeah, but what does it lead to? What does it actually create? At the end of the season, if he's sitting with, 5 assists and 5 goals, that's not good enough for a winger at Rangers who's playing every week. So it's a tough one to get the balance there. Could we make them have children and then we'd end up with the perfect player?
Well, you're talking to the right person there to get that done.
Yeah, you're child making machine.
Do you know what? I think it's an area, certainly that right side of the attack that we've already heard the rumours about us looking to invest in. I'd probably say if a new centre half is our number one target going into the window, I'd say right side of the attack or winger. I can call him
Gio calls it a winger.
Yeah,
Gio calls it a winger.
So we are looking for a right winger. I'd say would be our second target. If we get somebody that we can get firing down that side, then we'll be pretty hard to stop. But I still, Scott Wright's the kind of guy that you don't want to write off because there is the raw talent there. As you say, he has got that ability to create space for other players, and I think in a game that's more open, that can be an asset. But I don't know when it's a game like we had on Saturday and Dundee United are happy, just send one guy out to mark him, and then everyone else can just congregate in the centre of the park. That pretty much nullifies his threat. But if a game that's more open, like maybe he played in that Hearts game when they are going for it, he can do the runs, get in behind, but there was no real chance of him getting in behind when they've got five along the box anyway. It's an area that needs to improve. Scott Wright's got something there, but the decision making, the final delivery, the goals, as you say, no, they're just not there right now. And he needs to, if he's going to have a future as a a proper Rangers player, that'll need to improve. And Haji's a player, but you just need to play to his ability. But he's just not as good as the other guy we've got in that position right now.
Andy?
Well, I agree. I mean, if Haji's nowhere near as good as Joe Aribo, but if Aribo was going to sit this one out, surely that would have been the game for Haji to play there and be given a shot in that 10 position. I agree with David Marshall that it's Haji's best position, and he seems to be more effective. My real concern with Yanis Hadji is that I've yet to see him start a game well. Certainly not since the Livingston game in the first match of the season. He always looks better for me when he comes off the bench because he can change things up and have a more of an impact in the kind of final third. When he starts games, I think the opposition very quickly sort of find out what he's doing. This is just, again, my own personal observation. But I would like to have seen him drop in and Arfield drop back instead of Lundstram and had either Sakala or Wright on the wing. That would have been my kind of choice. With regards to Scott Wright, there's an element of what Ryan Kent was like in the first couple of months where you think, oh, this guy's got flashes. I mean, not nowhere near as good, but that kind of, okay, he's been here a year now, Scott Wright. We signed him in January, and has he improved when we've seen him? The argument can be made he's not played enough minutes to really get better, but I don't think he has improved enough to merit a start when he's come on. He's not, all right, we've got to get Scott Wright a game. It's more like let's see what he can do instead of he's a very adequate replacement for the guys that are there. So he has to step up very, very quickly. Otherwise, he could find himself dropping down the pecking order as well if we do sign somebody for that kind of right forward or right wing position. So yeah, that would have been my change anyway in the team and giving Hadji a game because I agree. I think he's wasted out in that right wing.
Just another thing on Wright, sorry, as well, before we move on for this. I think right now he's the kind of guy that you bring on when the game's already going well, when you're 2 or 3-0 up and the defence for the opposition is starting to tire, maybe can't be arsed anymore, just want the game to be over, like the Ross County game. Bring him on to that and let him run at the defence. But for a game where, as we say here, he's starting and you want him to have an impact in the game, or if it's a tight nothing each game and the defence are being really solid and stubborn at the back, he just doesn't seem to be the guy for that moment.
Yeah, I think that's a wee bit harsh because I think he did contribute on Saturday when he came on. For me, though, Andy mentioned the words impact sub. I think both Hadji and Wright are better at that at the moment, which is why for me Sakala would be the guy starting in that role. But I get that the manager feels that against a packed defence you need that wee bit more creativity. But it will be interesting to see if Rangers do go out and try to bring in someone to play on the right, because I think you're right. But clearly, Sakala was there and the manager turned to Scott Wright, so there's a bit of belief in him. There's no doubt about that. And I think there's huge belief in Hadji. I mean, Hadji finished the 90 minutes, was able to complete a wild Rabona in the last minute that, to be fair, he immediately apologised for in his post-match interview. Second half was always going to be a game where you thought one goal was going to decide this, either a mistake or a bit of brilliance, and of course it was a mistake. Cross come in from Nathan Patterson on our left. Dundee United boy catches it. Penalty kick dispatched by James Tavernier. Dave, any doubts about the penalty?
Only in Scotland. It was the most penalty you could ever see in your life. He sticks his right hand out as far away from his body as you can get. I don't know what the boy was thinking. It's a stonewall penalty every day of the week. But of course, it did lead to the amusing comments on Twitter of, well, it doesn't matter if it's a penalty. But that's what we're up against in this country. But it was a penalty, obviously.
My favourite was, I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty, I'm just asking why nobody else gets them. Nobody else gets penalties in Scotland. Nobody, right? Is that?
And also missing the point as well that the referee didn't give it. It was a linesman.
Yeah, and fair play, because it was an absolute stonewaller. James Tavernier, pressure penalty, Andy, but he was, you can tell when Tav's confident, ran up, grabbed the ball, smashed it away into the corner. It was a year ago on Sunday from the Motherwell game, the Cedric Itten goal. And I had the same vibe on Saturday, because with half an hour to go, there was a sense of where's a goal coming from. because we were not creating a hell of a lot. Scott Wright missed a good chance, and you thought it's just going to be one of those days. So the nerves I felt as Tav stepped up to hit that, and thankfully he was absolutely clinical.
It's a terrific penalty, a lot of pressure. And that's what you want from your captain, he's the man to do it. Get the ball with no Kamar Roof there. He's the obvious, not Barisic, maybe be the other guy who could have taken them. So fantastic penalty, and 69 goals and 103 assists for Tav now. And I'm a bit of a stats man. That's a goal or a goal contribution every 162 minutes since he's joined the club. I mean, that's basically better than one every 2 games. And so many of these we can look at as being high pressure penalties, free kicks, getting a goal out of nothing at St Johnstone with that World he did a few weeks back. It's fantastic, and that's exactly what you want from your captain. With regards to the penalty itself, I mean, we all know now, it's like, of course it's a Stonewaller, but we'll just sit back and wait for the seeds to come. And it's not just from the morons, it's from people who should know better, sort of pundits from the other side that were, shock and surprise. We'll not name them, they know who they are. But of course, actually see the incident first, maybe, before you comment. I don't know, maybe just a wee suggestion for them. But yeah, great moment, huge 3 points.
One of the things about Scottish media that's become apparent to me over the years is that they don't have the same fear of looking stupid that normal people have, because you or I will go out of our way to not look stupid. We'll try very hard. We'd prefer if people didn't think he's a moron. That doesn't seem to bother them. They'll just wire right in and go, hey, everyone, I'm a moron. And that is what we saw at the weekend.
It seems to have a successful career in the Scottish media, to be fair to them.
It doesn't hurt, no.
No.
There are certain jobs where quite clearly intellect isn't, a given, and I think we've seen it there. I think we've seen it with the last 2 presidents of the USA. It's not anything that you really need. It's not going to be a drawback in that chosen career path.
It's good to know.
Survived the scare late on. And Andy, it's one of these ones, bad mistake. Kamara and Goldson just let the ball go from a throw in. Dundee United player gets a looping header on it. It loops up over Alan McGregor, clips the top of the bar. I mentioned this last week. To win a league, you need a bit of luck. Luck Rangers weren't getting a few weeks ago, and we're getting now. Balances out, etc. Karma, yin and yang, world is in perfect balance, etc. But you do need it, and we're not the only team that's been getting it. Celtic have more than certainly been getting it recently, but it at that moment I just thought to myself, yeah, we're winning this title.
So Haji's Rabona attempt at the end, the kind of mistake with the letting the ball bounce in your box, which is something you learn in your early days not to do, let the ball bounce in your box, especially if you're a centre half. But they got away with it. It's a great bit of luck. We held out. I didn't ever feel that we were going to concede throughout the game. And that's not something that we could have said earlier on in the season. So it's fantastic. And I'm absolutely delighted that they managed to see it out. A significant 3 points.
Your kids clearly hated that Rabona. I think it's fair to say. I mean, even just the mention of it.
They've called it spot on now.
Yeah, they have called it spot on. It. No, I don't blame her. I think we all did. Dave, on this then about the predictable outpouring, it's not it's not something that just happens. And I think that we've seen that this week with the continued complaints from the other side of the city about everything, despite the fact that, in the last few games, they've had, I think, 7 penalties not awarded against them this season that were pretty clear penalties. You've seen that, what happened in the League Cup final again, last minute penalty absolutely denied. The referee playing until they scored the other night. It's pretty clear why they do this, because they want to get in, and they've absolutely achieved it with John Beaton. John Beaton was never ever given a last minute penalty against Celtic in a cup final. He just quite clearly thought, is this worth it? No. The shit I'll have to go through. This is a guy who got death threats over a year ago. This is a guy, or 2 years ago, this is a guy who this month, because he gave Rangers a penalty, saw Celtic's in-house media person, Chris Sutton, call him a Mason on national TV. it's deliberate and it's to crank up the pressure. And on the weaker referees, it works.
It's it's absolutely coordinated. You're right. The John Beaton one, as you say, and I don't think for a second that any referees in this country are cheats for any side. I think the overall standard of refereeing in Scotland is absolutely abysmal. But there is that human side to it, that subconscious, that in a flash moment, a house player goes down in the box in the last minute of a final, and it's not human for a referee to think, how's this going to affect me if I give this penalty here? He knows it is, and it's totally deliberate, and it's boring, it's predictable, but it's also going to have effects as well, because the referees are human. These things are going to play in their mind. I've never received a death threat. I know you've had a few in your time, Davey. I can't imagine it's a pleasant experience, and I can't imagine it doesn't come into your thinking, comes into your judgment in any walk of life. It's where we are, but I don't know how it changes, and I don't think it will change.
The way my back feels, it would be a mercy killing at the moment. So if anyone, was to get in touch and say that, they were going to off me, I don't think I would quite have the same reaction as the...
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, oh, Jesus Christ, man. It'll happen to you, listener, if you're a younger guy. Bad backs, World War II fixations. It'll happen to you. Crazy interest in how to cure and prepare meat to then barbecue. This will happen. It happens to everyone.
Obsession with the lake in the grass. That's my one.
Oh, are you a temperature
guy? See lights on in the house that don't need to be on.
Yeah, you would hate me.
Nothing worse. Oh,
you would hate me. My house sits at 23 degrees, all the year round, and you can tell where I've been in the house through a day by the trail of lights that are on.
The OCD. This is the OCD loyal here. That's what this sounds like.
Yeah, no, I'm just. I don't think. I mean, I'm also at that stage where I walk into a room and go, "Why am I here? What prompted me to get up and walk to this room and then walk back and 10 minutes later remember?" So no, it'll happen to you, youngsters. It'll happen to all of you.
You're all going to turn into your dad. See, you're listening. Everyone turns into their dad.
No, you met my dad. I'd love to. He's
lovely.
He's
a great guy.
Yeah, and I'm an arsehole.
So,
yeah, exactly. I've been waiting for years to do that, and it just hasn't came to fruition as of yet. Love you, Dad. Right, Andy, 6 matches, 6 wins, 1 goal conceded. We had no right the Monday after that Hibs semi-final to expect Gio to achieve it. We wanted him to do it. We demanded he do it. But my goodness, that is one hell of a report card so far.
And he's done it without spending a penny. There you go. And listen, he's got a better first 6 game record than any manager, certainly in my lifetime. I don't know if you have to go back to Mr. Struth, for a record like that, but it's better than Walter, than Souness, than Advocat, than McLeish, who obviously, I mean, yes, he's inherited a championship winning side, but the side was on the decline, to be fair to him. And 6 out of 6, you cannot ask for any more than that. And most tellingly is the fact that in that 6, we've only conceded 1 goal. And that is not something we could have predicted, having given away 3 howling goals in the first half hour of that cup semi. So it's such a quick turnaround, and I can't wait to see what he's able to do during the winter break. And of course, we don't know whether that's going to be extended or not. But once he's actually had time with the players without the games and get to work on them and getting into their psyches more. But what he's managed to do from a team that was just doing enough and no more in games and struggling and conceding early is absolutely brilliant. And as I said before, it's done without him having his own impact on the playing staff. And once he's able to do that, bring in his own players, his own sort of style as well, and work on the training ground, I think it's a very, very positive future we've got under this management team. So yeah, it's so far so good.
Dave, we've got 3 matches coming up. Tough ones, St Mirren at home on Boxing Day, then we've got Aberdeen away, Celtic away. And it's a big if, because you're then after 9 wins in a trot, which is, would be flawless. I mean, it would be perfect, yeah. But if we did get 3 wins we are going to be incredibly tough to stop.
I'm very much of the opinion that as we sit here today recording, we are 3 wins away from the title. if we win the next 3 games, we will win the league, in my opinion. To get to this point of this month and to win every game so far has been absolutely fantastic from the new management team. I don't think you could have had much, to complain about, although we would have if Gio came in and dropped points in his first few games because he was totally new to this team. It was a team that had a weird decline since the summer, and I think that League Cup, the semi-final loss was the point where this was all leading to our slow slogging start to the
nadir.
Yeah, and it was a point. It wasn't. You could no longer say this was the start of the season. This was just how we were playing this season. This is just how we were, and I was getting worried to the point that we were just going to slog our way to the title, and it wasn't going to be fun, and it wasn't going to be great to live through. If we continued the way we were going, losing 3 goals to Hibs, I don't think you could say there was a guarantee that we would win the league. The way we're going now, I've got every confidence that we'll be absolutely fine, and we're going to be playing some good football on the way to do that. Sunday wasn't great, as I've mentioned, but I'm more than confident. 3 wins away from the title, and I'm sticking by that. I know I have people shouting me 1 game at a time, but listen, those 3 wins, we get them out of the way, we're in a good position.
No, we most certainly are, and I think that there are signs. Kent's coming back to form. I think Morelos has been decent, and I'm pretty excited by what this management team can achieve. Andy, in fact, if I was to draw parallels, I'm getting a real sense of what Big Ek did when he arrived back December, in fact, 2001, when he took a talented squad, but one that was just shorn of confidence, hadn't been playing anywhere near what it could deliver, and then just that next 18 months, just solidly built, and we all know what happened.
Yeah, if I remember, McLeish, he took over, and his first game was at Motherwell, I think, and we drew 2 each, and then he went on a run.
A last minute nonsense penalty we lost.
Yes, it was.
That's right, and we went on a run after that. I think he won the next 5 or 6 games on the spin. And we thought, right, okay, he's getting something out of this team. He's getting a tune out of them. And we were already out of the league back then, so he won the next 5 trophies that were available to him over that next 18 months. And if we could do anything like that, if Gio could win the 2 trophies domestically that are available to him this season, and then carry that on into next year once he's had time with it, a full almost a full season with the team to blend. It's really forecasting well for us, I think, is the expression. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen. We might lose players in the window, although I hope no more than 1, and hopefully we'll be able to bring in some fresh blood as well. It definitely does resemble that kind of McLeish 2001-2 when he took over a little bit. And there's a healthy squad. We've got good players. You mentioned Morelos and Kent, but Borna as well. He's playing well again. Kamara seems to. I thought he was struggling this season, I have to be honest, but he's got the bit between his teeth again, and he looks like he wants to take command of that midfield in the absence of Davis.
I'm glad you mentioned that. He was my man of the match on Saturday, purely because I think he was the guy that injected that urgency.
Yeah, he is, and he looks refreshed. And I felt he was struggling, and but it's great to see him back. Obviously, we've mentioned Aribo, who's been our star in the last couple of months. But even McGregor, the goalkeeper, is so critically important that your goalkeeper is making saves, and that was not happening. We all said maybe he's done, maybe he's finished. He's almost 40, but he's hitting what I consider pretty much top form as well. So it's amazing what you can do with a new manager, and I just hope that now we can consider them the new manager bounce is probably past them. We've come away with the maximum points. Let's see now what's going to happen as we get to the next 3 games. And if we can get to the break, at least maintaining that 4-point lead, I don't think we'll be caught either, I have to say.
No, I would agree with that. Right, folks, that will do us on today's flagship show. We will be back next Monday. We won't be on Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock for obvious reasons. We think you'll be busy at that point. But we will be back next Monday with a report of the St Mirren game. Obviously, the situation because of COVID is fluid at the moment. We know that. We don't know what the script is going to be. But certainly as we sit and record it on the Monday, then it's going to go ahead. So my thanks, first of all, to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. My thanks to Andy.
Thanks very much, David. Have a wonderful Christmas and hope to speak to you guys soon.
And to David.
Pleasure as always, gents.
And I just want to thank all of you for all of your support this year. Your support is normally magnificent, but this year more than ever. And to remind you that if you do want certainly some content over the next couple of weeks when things do get a bit crazy, go to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/heart and hand. And a good last minute Christmas present for the bear in your life as well. You can sign them up to a yearly subscription if you so wish. So you can go and do that. Good place to do that. But I wish you all a very happy, safe, and wonderful Christmas. I hope that Santa leaves a good present in your fireplace. I hope if you support another team, Santa leaves something else in your fireplace. But we're very much looking forward to the Christmas period, and then we will guide you through it as always. Thanks for listening, folks, and we'll talk to you again next week. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.